Hello, snorfs. I thought I'd do a bit of a different video today. I'm going to be playing Dead by Daylight in the background, but the main focus, I'm mostly just going to be talking about, like, the state of FNaF, my channel, stuff like that, you know. Just kind of filling you in on what's been going on for me recently, kind of where I'm at in terms of making videos these days. And yeah, so I guess I wanted to start off by talking about Secret of the Mimic, which came out a few weeks ago now, and I've played it in its entirety. And my personal opinion, it might be the best FNaF game. I don't know of all time, but it's definitely the best within like the last 5 years or so. It honestly might be the best of all time. I don't know. It's definitely not a perfect game, but I really enjoyed playing it. So in terms of making videos on Secret of the Mimic, I probably won't be doing that. Um, and this is kind of where talking about my channel comes in. So as most of you have probably subscribed to me for, and what my channel got started on was, of course, making FNAF theory videos. And I haven't really done that in a while. And that's with reason, and that was, the theory space is not fun, I guess I'll say. Um, I am a person who does like making theories about anything really that I consume, not just FNAF. Um, but what I found years ago when I was making them is coming up with theories and releasing them to an audience is oftentimes just more exhausting than it is like rewarding, because well I see it as just something, you know, fun to do to engage with you know, media I enjoy. I feel a lot of people see it as like the only thing that matters in life. So if you get anything that they think is wrong, you will never hear the end of it. And I'm fine if people think I'm wrong. I can handle, like, you know, 12-year-olds on the internet saying that my theories suck. But it is exhausting, though, to, like, kind of have to respond to the same comment over and over and over and over again. And it really got to a point where I was like, this has become more of a chore for me than something that's, like, fun to do. And as such, I don't really see a world where I go back to that. Even though, again, the story of Secret of the Mimic was really interesting. And there are things that, you know, while playing it, I did talk with other people about. I probably won't be doing that publicly just because, like, there's nothing really for me to get out of it at that point. I feel most of the things I'd want to talk about you could probably already find at some other theory channel who probably does it better, or at least similar to how I do it. And B, I just don't really have the interest in dealing with, you know, clarifying the same points in the comments over again on repeat. So I won't be doing that. But I will talk more in depth about my thoughts on Secret of the Mimic in this video. Um, so I guess first I want to start with the actual gameplay. I think Steel did a great job at taking like the ideas they had for Security Breach and making them actual viable for a game. You know, because because Security Breach also had the noise distraction mechanics, and it had the hiding spots and that type of thing. It had like tried to use stealth, but it didn't do it very well because, you know, there were staff bots around every corner that just made the game tedious. But also, if those bots weren't there, the animatronics would never find you because the place is so big. But by making like a setting that's so much more dense and like claustrophobic, it made the mimic like such a better enemy to face than the Glamrocks. Because it could realistically catch you without needing to rely on a bunch of external factors to do it. And I think that alone made it like super interesting to play. I wouldn't say it's scary. It didn't scare me, at least. There are a couple of moments in the game that I thought like kind of nailed the spook factor, like the Sleepy Moon section and the White Tiger section were both like really well done, and I like them a lot. Is the developer text super offset? Did they bug? Oh no, that's okay. Never mind that. Yeah, so those sections are really well done, and honestly, I'd like to see more of that take up a game. But I don't know. At least for me, the kind of like running around, hiding, was never that scary to me. Just because the mimic, like, the mimic had some scary costumes, like especially the unfinished ones, or like the bees were really creepy. But its general presence wasn't that threatening on the account that like you always knew where it was pretty much because it was super loud. I kind of wish that it was stealthier and would like change costumes more frequently when you weren't looking, just to like keep some tension. But I feel like what would happen is you'd enter a room, the mimic would spawn after a few seconds, and once you saw what costume it was in, it would just like never leave that costume. Like there was no real surprise factor, which I feel like it's been missing from FNaF for a while, you know? Because like the game still has jump scares. FNaF still is a series about jump scares, but it's kind of lost the entire point of them. Because you're not surprised when it happens anymore. Because you see the monster coming to get you. And I feel like it would be a lot more of a tense experience if the mimic was a lot more like stealthy. I'm really bad at this game, by the way. So that's the gameplay side of things. Overall, really liked it. Had some... It wasn't perfect, but overall, I think it was a great improvement from Security Reach. In terms of the story, I think that the story was, again, probably one of the most well done ones in any FNaF game ever, just because of how much there was. No, that was mostly through audio logs and like the like helper stations and stuff. But I thought that was a really cool way to do it, because it doesn't, like, it keeps the FNaF thing of like you don't have to engage with the story, but if you really want to see it, like it's there for you to find. And I think that was really great, and I think it's awesome how Edwin, in the span of one game, became the most like developed FNaF human. Like I'd argue he's even more developed of a character than William Afton is, just on the account that we know so much about him. Like the game even went in places I didn't expect it to. Like it talked about, you know, his dad dying and leaving him the company. Like stuff like that, I didn't really expect them to talk about, but they did. And you know, there's that one like hidden helper thing that you can see if you bring the admin permissions to the main room area where you see his proposal to Fiona. That was really neat. Are you kidding me? Okay, I'm really bad. Alright. Yeah, talking while playing isn't my strong suit, I say while hitting. Okay, so that's... Oh, also the reveals in Secret of the Mimic were, like, really well done. Again, it felt like Security Breach, but, like, actually, like, properly done. Like, Security Breach, you know, you go under the Pizzaplex and you find that the FNaF 6 location is under there for some reason, like a sinkhole or something. And it's like, cool, that makes a whole lot of sense. But in Secret of the Mimic, you go underneath Edwin's manor, and you find the FNaF 1 location down there. And that actually makes sense because it's not like the actual building, it's just like the prototype version of it. And I think that made for a lot more of a rewarding reveal because it felt like it made sense while also like just being cool to see, you know? And kind of along the same lines, the I guess secret ending where you get the glitch permissions and you do the story time thing. That moment where you round the corner of that vent and you are looking into like what clearly inspired the FNaF 4 bedroom, that was really well done and cool. I really like that. I was expecting to see the sister location living room on the account that also showed up in Security Breach, but also was again just kind of a weird addition. Like, why was that in there? But, you know, this made sense because we were in an actual house, and of course you'd find a bedroom in a house. And it kind of added to the kind of implication that William not only stole Edwin's employees and his company, but he also stole his house, which is like... I don't know. The characterization of William and Henry is really interesting. Because obviously for Henry, it shows that he wasn't a goody two-shoes his whole life. And was actually, at least in the early days, just as guilty as William was, in some regard. On William's side of things, it kind of kills the notion that he started killing because, like, some sob story of his kid dying to Fredbear. And that he was just kind of always a jerk and a terrible person. And I think William Afton as a character is much more interesting just as like this evil guy. Like this guy who just sucks. And doesn't really have a reason for it other than he's a bad person. But I think that's... I guess the only other thing I wanted to talk about was the puzzle design. I really liked. Secret of the Mimic is the first FNaF game that I have 100% completed without looking at a guide for anything. Like, I figured everything out on my own, and that was really rewarding. And I thought all the puzzles were super interesting, too. My only criticism for it in that regard is... I feel like some of the, like, especially the code puzzles, I feel like were kind of repetitive in the terms of, like, I feel like for all of them, you just look at nearby security cameras, you see the order of numbers that are shown, and you call it a day. I think the most well-done version of that they did was, the one where it just shows like a single camera of the numbers in Jackie's room, and you actually have to go into that room and see which ones are green to know what the code is. I thought that was interesting and kind of mixed it up a bit. But overall, I do wish they just kind of like switched it up for each one just to keep it a little fresh. 'Cause, you know, once you just follow a code that's shown on the security cameras for like the 5th time, it's like, alright, I get it. But, you know, I think overall, the game is really well done. But that's Secret of the Mimic covered. Next I kind of want to cover just like this channel in general and what I will be doing, if anything at all. So one thing obviously is playing Dead by Daylight. But if I'm not doing that, I was thinking about doing more like DBD chapter concept videos. I do have some for FNaF in mind, but I like going beyond just FNaF and doing other things. Because, you know, I'm interested in other horror properties than just FNaF, and being able to talk about them, I think would be really, really nice. And I think that's something people might be interested in seeing. Could be wrong. But, yeah, so that's kind of all I have in mind for my channel. But, I'll also be talking about, or rather, I guess I should say, I also want to talk about FNAF's inclusion Dead by Daylight, because that also happened recently, and obviously I am playing it right now. So, the FNAF content kind of took me some getting used to, because overall I thought it was really cool from the start. Like, I thought Springtrap was really cool. I think the door mechanic was really awesome. But I think the big thing for me was, I just realized that this guy is my name. Anyways, I think the big thing for me was getting used to the fire axe. Because I never really liked that idea in fan concepts, because I don't know, I always wanted FNAF in this game to be represented by its official content. So it took me a bit to, like, you know, get used to it. But now that I played them a lot, and I've thought about it a bunch, I don't mind it that much, and in fact, I think it's pretty cool. Because if you think about it, FNAF is a series that's been, like, curated by its fan base, like, since the beginning. Like, Golden Freddy's name, I think, was made up by the fans, and it just kind of stuck. And in that regard, including a, like, fandom invented aspect in Springtrap's power, I think is actually a really good homage to the series as a whole. Because it really shows, like, how much influence the fans have over the series, and how much, like, you know, fans really matter to the series as a whole. That was really close. So thematically, I think it's really great. In fact, I think Springtrap, I might say, is one of the most well-done licensed killers they've ever done in terms of aesthetics. In terms of mechanics, he's also super fun to play as. My only thing, as you might have saw there, is I wish that the orbitals with the axe were incentivized more. Because I feel like the way you're kind of incentivized to play this character right now is like holding your axe out, just kind of following people, zoning them, and then hitting them. And you know, that works, but it's also like, it's also kind of lame. Because I think what makes Springtrap most interesting compared to other ranged killers is the fact that his projectile is so heavy. And as such, you know, if you know what you're doing and, you know, you get lucky, you can actually hit people over things. I think that's really cool. The problem with it, though, is since the axe's hitbox is so narrow, it's really inconsistent and really not worth doing. Because Springtrap isn't like a super duper powerful killer. I feel like people have come to the consensus he's about like B tier. So if you're wasting time like trying to hit orbitals, you know, you might hit one every now and then, but overall you're just going to keep missing. And if you're actually trying to win the game, that just like isn't viable. So I think it would be cool if um the higher you threw your axe, the more it would come down with like splash damage. Um like if you still get a direct hit, you'd still like break the survivor and get the axe embedded in them. But if they end up in like, you know, the like a certain radius of it, depending on how high you threw it up, you'd still injure them with like a shockwave or something. I don't know, just something to incentivize like actually trying to do orbitals. Because other than occasionally being able to get a cool clip with it, I feel like it should be the thing that makes Springtrap really stand out. And it does, but it also like isn't a reliable tool to actually use. So for that reason, I don't know. I think that could be improved. I think something else that could be improved, but I'm hesitant to talk about, is I think survivors should have more of an incentive to use the security doors. And I think the way they could do this is have it so if you reveal Springtrap using the cameras, that the door that you revealed him from will be sealed for a little bit until he's revealed somewhere else or the power goes out. Because, you know, in FNaF 3, one of the main mechanics is sealing the vents to keep Springtrap from getting to you. And I feel like that would be so perfect in this game and would really incentivize actually trying to use the cameras. But they just didn't do it. And, like, again, Springtrap isn't as powerful as it is, so, like, a quote-unquote nerf like that might not be warranted. But I don't want to nerf Springtrap. I just want to make his power more engaging, I guess. And I feel like that would be a good way to do it on the survivor side. Because then people would actually have a reason to take the time to try to reveal you. Because then that means that, you know, the door that they're close to will be sealed for a bit and you can't just teleport right on top of them. But overall, I don't hate it. In terms of the map, I think the pizzeria is really nice, and I think they did a good job. There are a few things that bother me, like there not being like a full dedicated security office. But overall, I think they nailed the pizzeria. What I don't like about the map is that once you take a few steps outside the pizzeria, the map just kind of stops being a FNaF map. Like suddenly you're back in Greenville Square, to the point where like the debris floating on the outsides of the map are assets that are only used in the Greenville Square map. But like for example, the movie theater seats are floating out there, even though those don't appear elsewhere on this map. And I think it would have been cool to see like the animatronic heads and endoskeletons just floating out there. Something else I wish is, while I do like the Easter eggs they did do, I am kind of kept wanting more. Like, I feel like there's a lot they should have still done. Like, I noticed that there's no reference to the puppet in this entire game. Which is weird given how, like, instrumental the puppet is to the entire FNaF story and even to Springtrap himself. Like one example, I feel like, well, of course now the match loads in, but I feel like the goodie bag add-on shouldn't be just like this random goodie bag that, you know, well, like that would make sense to have at Freddy's, but again, we've never seen that in the games or anything. I feel like that would be cooler to be like the puppet's mask or something, because then you'd have, you know, the 4 animatronic having one of their props as a blue, and then the puppet, who's kind of like the leader of the bunch, having a purple add-on. I also don't think there's a Golden Freddy reference, though I could be wrong about that. But, you know, on the day I played the PTB with my friends, one of them was like, hey, In the back here, they have the alleyway that the crying child was killed in. And what they were pointing out is there's a loop in the back where there's a car like parked near the wall of Freddy's, and there's like a dumpster nearby. So it could be a reference to that, but I'm not like super convinced. Because like the car isn't purple for one. And two, like it could just be like cars parked outside. So like, it could be a reference, but I'm not like super convinced that it is. Oh boy. So overall, I think this collab is really good. I'm just kind of left wanting more. But I think the positive side of that is we probably will be getting more. Because it seems I'm not alone in that opinion. Now, my ideal sequel chapter would be sister location themed, where Scrap Baby is the killer and Michael Afton is the survivor. But also, I wouldn't mind a chapter where the killer is the mimic, the map is either the Pizzaplex or MCM, and the survivor is Vanessa. That could also be cool. But yeah, overall, I guess all I can say is I'm just happy it happened. We very much could be in a world where we're still like theorizing about what a FNaF chapter would look like, and it still feels like a distant dream if possible at all. But no, we are in a timeline where like this has actually happened, you know, whether or not people are super happy with it or not. And that alone is super cool. I need to get better at this act. Alright, so I think that covers my thoughts on this chapter super well. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I really want to talk about, that I haven't covered already. I covered Secret of the Mimic. I guess I could go... I guess I kind of want to go more in depth on it for a bit of, like, why I've kind of left this channel, like, out to dry. And I've already talked about how the theory space, like, was really, like, tedious and kind of exhausting to deal with. But, even without, like, commenters being, like, tiresome to deal with, I think the bigger problem, if I'm being honest, like, I feel like after a while I could have just, like, handled it. I think the bigger problem, if I'm being honest with myself, is the fact that the theory space is just really difficult to keep up with. On the account that, like, early on, since I hadn't done that much, I could just cover topics that, like, actually interested me. And like Midnight Motors, for example. Like, that was one of my most popular videos. And I actually enjoyed talking about that. And then on the flip side of things, you know, we'd get to points later on in my channel's lifespan where I was talking about, like, is Burn Trap the Mimic? Which I didn't care about, but people sure loved talking about it. And I was like, alright, I don't really care, but I guess this is the new thing. And it felt like if I really wanted to keep up in the space, I would just have to, like, keep just kind of making up things that I don't care about to talk about. And this isn't to, like, criticize other FNaF theory channels, because they're obviously a lot more successful than I was, so clearly they're doing something right. But when I look, like, I haven't watched a theory channel in so long just because I feel like that's kind of what the space has become. Like, it's kind of talking about a topic that isn't really that interesting, but it's just to, like, kind of have something to talk about. And I don't know, that just doesn't interest me as much as, like, having, like, an actual, like, interesting topic to blabber on about for... Alright, I'm getting really annoyed, but, hold on, I need to lock in for a second. God damn it. But I guess that aside, I don't know. I think overall what I'm getting at is it just wasn't for me. Like, I wanted something that was, like, sustainable and felt like I was actually putting my all into. And it just kind of got to a point where I was just talking about things that I didn't care about, but people took, like, super seriously. And that wasn't really that fun. And another thing is, I've never felt more vindicated in my life than the reveal of Secret of the Mimic that the books were, like, not canon. Because if you recall, one of my earlier videos was talking about the canonicity of the book. Because that was a topic that was, like, really prevalent in the community at the time. And I wanted to cover it. But the amount of, like, condescension that, you know, came from those discussions from people who disagreed with me was just super irritating. And now in hindsight, they weren't even right to begin with. So they were kind of like going after me for not believing in something that wasn't even true to begin with. And on one hand, as I said, I feel really vindicated. On the other hand, I just feel like I feel like part of me wanted them to be right just on the account that, like, at least it would have been warranted to have faced so much backlash for, you know, pointing out that the books probably weren't true. But the amount of certainty people had that I was wrong when I wasn't, I don't know. That's just something that's gotten me thinking about how, like, yeah, the theory space just, like, really wasn't. I'm kind of glad that I'm not part of that anymore, and I probably won't be returning to it. Now I guess, well, again, I'm playing DBD, and I'm talking about being annoyed. So, funniest thing happened where the FNaF chapter came out, and I kind of stopped caring about this game. Something similar happened when Chucky came out. Like I wanted Chucky for a really long time, and then he finally came to the game, and then I just, like, stopped playing it. And I think the main reason for that is I really want to play Killer, because again, I want to play Springtrap. But Killer just isn't fun most of the time these days, I found. And I don't know if I've just gotten worse, or the game's just gotten harder. But I feel like in most of my games, like, if I'm not playing in ways that I don't think are fun, I'm just not going to have a good time. Like, I've never really liked tunneling camp. Like, again, I don't think there's anything morally wrong with doing any of those things. But I've never liked doing those things just because they aren't fun for me. I like making sure both sides have a good time. But... And again, maybe I'm just telling on myself here, but I kind of feel like if you want to win the game as Killer, you just kind of need to do at least one of those things now. Because, you know, a lot of the time I've been finding survivors keep going down in, like, pallets or something, or bring a lot of flashlights, so they will keep on stunning you whenever you down them. So to avoid that, you pretty much have to slug them. And now I don't think camping's ever really been something you really need to do. Especially nowadays where, like, it's something you're actively punished for doing. So I don't do that much. But I do find myself tunneling sometimes, though, just because, you know, the anti-tunnel mechanics I found really incentivize recently unhooked survivors to just, like, play as, like, a human shield. Like, with the endurance status effect, they can just like run in your face and body block. And I guess the new kind of philosophy I picked up is like, if you're running in my face after you've just gotten unhooked, like, you have it coming. But there's a problem with that where if you do catch them, they might have decisive strike. And so if you really want to avoid it, you just kind of have to leave them on the ground. And again, I don't really know if that's that fun. And I don't know. I've just been finding myself more and more irritated by this game, which is another reason why I feel like I've stopped playing it. Because I live with this philosophy that, like, if a game's making you, like, upset, you shouldn't be playing it. And of course, if this game's getting on my nerves, I should not play it. And that really sucks. Because I really like this game in theory, but in practice, like, I don't think the game is unfair by any means. I just think maybe I've played it so much to this point that people just, like, playing the game gets annoying. Like, I feel like sometimes I'll see a survivor just, like, volt in front of me, or, like, stun me in a pallet that I actively walked into. And I'll get annoyed at that, even though that was by all means, like, just them playing the game as you're supposed to play it. And I feel like if you get to that point with the game, you just really need to just take a break. But again, that really sucks, because FNaF just came out, and I've been wanting this for years. But now I'm at a point where I just don't want to play the game anymore. So that's... yeah. But I think that's all I really wanted to talk about today. This video is almost 40 minutes long at this point. I don't even know if anyone will watch this for that reason alone. But yeah, that's really my thoughts on things as of recent. I hope if any of you did stick around, you at least find it interesting. And yeah, I guess I'll see you all next time.